Hey, Side Eye Society. What's up? Come on in here. Okay, friend. First things first, my birthday celebration has officially come to an end. It went out with a bang as always. There were fireworks all over the place, all over the world. It is amazing. I know. Mind your business. Let me stay over here in delusion because, like I said, it was my birthday. Okay. And now that we've moved on, we can move over to the rest of these babies and their birthdays. So, a happy birthday to all of you. Now, friend, I'm gonna be honest with you today. The news has been newsing this week. The Supreme Court, the heat, the world just out here doing the most. But I need to tell you, friend, that between my birthday month wrapping up, okay, dissertation stuff, coursework stacking up, residency coming up, and this just been an overall hard week for me in general. This was not easy, friend. Okay. And anybody that says it was, I feel like you lied. My energy has truthfully been in the basement, and this episode took me longer than I planned to get it done. Um, Honestly, much longer than I really wanted it to take. And then today, as I was recording it, I re-recorded it like 10 times because I just wasn't in the mood. So I decided to give you me as I am today. And unfortunately, this is who you got. Like it or love it. Here we are. Um, but yeah, again, heads up. July 22nd is the only week I'm not gonna be here that I know of right now, right? I did tell y'all every say that I'm pulling up my share, and I do mean that. For residency week, I don't think I'm gonna have it to give to you or anything other than residency, friend. So we're gonna take a brief pause that week. So it'll be July 22nd. Well, it's July. Um, and I genuinely will not have a conversation in me. Again, I'll still be on Instagram and TikTok, so at least you'll know where I am. And we'll be right back after that, okay? So let's get into it. Oh, and if you're new here, you just pulled up on me and don't know me yet, let me put you on real quick. I'm Meika. I am the friend that you're going to call every week to find out about anybody and everything, kind of like one of the ABC agencies. And friend, by ABC agencies, I mean like the DEI, DEA, FBI, and the CIA. I'm really nosy as hell, but I really only deal in facts. The nosiness was here before the true crime, and I absolutely love, 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 love true crime. Um, It just gave my nosiness somewhere to go. So if it's foul, if the math ain't mathing, if something don't sit right in my spirit, I'm gonna bring it to you. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna slide out together. Today, we are on True Crime Drive. But real quick, if you've been rocking with me every Wednesday, thank you. And if you are new here, thanks for joining me. But in this moment, what I want you to do is stop what you're doing, go to whatever you're listening to this on, and make sure you subscribe or follow, whatever it says, right? Follow, share, leave a comment. And if I've earned 5 stars, leave me those 5 stars, okay? Don't lie to me if I haven't. Let me know how I can improve. Now, friend, as always, I always give you a disclaimer when something is really heavy. And this one is kind of heavy. It covers the death of a pregnant woman and her unborn baby girl. And truthfully, if today is not the day for you and your spirit is already full, no guilt, no judgment. I, of course, will be here when you get back. But if you decide you want to stick around and you're riding with me, go ahead and pull your chair all the way up to this table, get your snacks, and let's get going. Okay. So, the story that we're going to get into today, I've been sitting with for a while, and I made myself wait because I really don't want to bring you no half-ass story frame. But on July 1st of this year, the jury came back on this one, and that's when I was like, okay, bet. Now I could take this to frame. But before I take you anywhere in this file, something bothered me every time I was like listening to the story. Every article and every clip I had seen, every thread, everybody was talking about this dude. And I was like, we don't give a fuck about him. I mean, we give a fuck about him and like how he got here because of him. But we don't really know the girl. And before anything else, I want to get to know the girl for a second. So that's where we're going to start. All right. Let me go ahead and put on my handy dandy glasses and let's dive right into it. So, friend, what brought me to this case was this one question that I had saw while I was looking at this case that first caught my face buffering in real time. All right, so it first caught my attention and it hooks me in because the question was, "What did you put in my drink?" I know, right? Like it brought you into. I know, cause you nosy just like me. Cause what the fuck was in a drink? Okay. Anyways, that's the whole center of this right here, and that's the year-long investigation, the lab work, the days of trial, because all anybody else was trying to answer was that question exactly, okay? We're gonna keep that in the back of our head this whole time. So, there was this girl, her name was J. Tristan Bennett. She was born in March of 1998, excuse me, in Little Rock, Arkansas. Mind your business, I know it's Arkansas, keep up. And before this story because about anything else, I want you to know who she was, okay? So I kind of kept a running tab of who she was as a victim as I was going through the story. Um, just something happened to that's not really who she was. She really was a person, okay? She was a cheerleader at the age of 7. She didn't just stay a cheerleader. She worked her way up to cheer captain, both JV and varsity in Little Rock Central High School. And now, for I know what you're thinking, a cheerleader, because a lot of people cheered, okay? But she never started something and walked away from it. Every single thing she put her hand on, she completely went all the way. So when she graduated, she went straight to culinary school at Brightwater Culinary Arts in Northwest Arkansas. Mind your business. I know what it is. Again, focus. She graduated in 2020 and she didn't just go to culinary school. She actually used it and became the head pastry chef at Mirabella's Table, an Italian restaurant in Arkansas. And then this is the part that made me stop and just really sit with it. Because friend, after she did all of that, she decided she was gonna go ahead and open up her own catering business. It was called JTB Eateries, okay? Her initials, her business, she built them from scratch. So then she packed up. Like she did all of that and then just packed up and moved and left Arkansas and moved to Nashville by herself. She decided that she was going to go there and build her life. So by 2022, she was now in Nashville and working at a bar called Ernest Bar in Hideaway as a line cook. And she was doing exactly what she was trying to do, okay? Stacking her wins and minding her business, okay? Now her obituary friend and her people wrote it right, okay? They said, quote, "To know Jade was to love Jade. She had a smile that would light up a room, a laugh that was contagious, and a heart that loved everybody." Well, dot, dot, dot. There were a few exceptions, end quote. Even in grief, her family kept her whole personality in that obituary frame. And I really hope that my family does that because, I'm one of the people that's like, when I go, don't let nobody show up to my funeral that really didn't belong at my funeral. Make sure you put them out because that's what I will do. Okay. Keep my same energy. All right. But, anyways, I digress. All the way digressed, okay? All the way left. And if I also didn't tell you in the beginning, my ADHD was ADHD and ain't the only way I knew I had ADHD this week. So it seems to still be here. All right. But we're gonna get through it. So, all right, 2022, Jay is also pregnant. Now, about this time, she's 5 months along, and people who knew her during this trial time said that she was at every single appointment, okay? Every single one, never missed one. And from the moment that she found out she was pregnant, she stopped drinking. Her doctor also confirmed it on the stand that she put it all down before anybody asked her to, right? And so then her stepmother testified that when Jay found out she was having a girl, her demeanor was, and I'm reading directly from trial testimony, consistently happy and stable, quote unquote. Then her coworker, Lauren Weber, testified, quote, "She just knew what was ahead of her. She was positive. She was going home after work. She was getting her apartment ready. She just wanted to be a mom and she was ready to be a mom," end quote. She was doing all the things that a new mama is trying to do to make sure that their baby comes into this world with everything they need, okay? But then I kept reading and realized that she had picked out a name for her daughter. Her baby's name was Ivy. And that was just something I couldn't read anymore because then it really made like this baby a whole person for me. But anyways, so Ivy, Ivy's mom, Jade, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about Jade. All right. She had already decided she was going to love this child, whether or not this man showed up for this baby or not. Okay. I'm gonna tell you this little piece. She had texted him directly, and the record shows it. Her exact words. You said how you felt and stated that moving forward, you want no parts. So I will let it be. I will not involve you at any point. I will love this child unconditionally with or without you. Okay. With or without you is what she said. I want you to hold on to that. Now, I know you over there asking questions because I know how your mind work and I deliberately am leaving things out. Just listen, friend. Just listen. So then, right? Naturally, that should have been the end of it. I'd be telling him, I'm going to do this with or without you. I don't need you, pretty much. She made her position clear. She had a name, she had a plan, she had a whole lot she was building. That should have been it, and we would not even be here, but we are. So I'm going to tell you about him now. See, you just gotta hold still, friend, and pause. I got you. Now, the him, Mr. Him downstairs. I won't tell you where that's from. If you know, you know. But him is Blaze Taylor. Okay. He's 30 years old, Waco, Texas. Is it Waco or Waco? Either way, it doesn't matter. It's Texas. He's a cornerback at Arkansas State University, 4 year starter, team captain, good enough to play in the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl in January 2018. That's the Rose Bowl friend in Pasadena, California. He also earned his bachelor's degree and a master's of business administration from Arkansas State in less than 4 years. Okay, not 4 years each. He did both degrees together, which tells me that he was on an accelerated path and he was about his business. He was trying to get that shit done. So then entered the Tennessee Titans. They come calling him, and he did a stint with them as a graduate assistant at Duke first, and then the Tennessee Titans brought him on as a full-time pro scout. Now, we're gonna sit with that for a second because clearly this man had a career, a real one, okay, in the NFL, and he was not out here just looking crazy like we'd be expecting these types of people to look, okay? Now, I'm telling you this because of what the file says, and it just doesn't make sense, okay? Like what he did and what you stand to lose, what he stood to lose, it don't make sense, all right? So it's not small, right? This dude's got a big career, a real career, and a lot of people like most people spend their whole lives chasing it, okay? So January 2022, him and Jay matched on Hinge. And we gonna leave Hinge alone because plenty of people meet on Hinge. I didn't, but that's not our business. That's not the problem. Okay. We not side-eyeing Hinge right now. At first, the two of them barely talked for me. But in August 2022, they reconnected, went to dinner, and started spending more time together. It was very casual, as in we just, hit it and quit it kind of thing. And we gonna go about our business. We just had the fun. It wasn't exclusive, is what I'm saying. So that's what the trial testimony showed us. And then in early November 2022, Jay was like, "Hey, yo, my boy, I'm pregnant and it's yours." Now, somebody in a car or wherever you are, think about, okay, but maybe he just wasn't ready to be a dad. Pause and hold it. Stick a pin in it, friend. We're going to come back around to it, okay? And I do hear you because plenty of people are not ready to be a parent. It is a real thing, and that's not the issue either. The issue is what he said. Now, Jay's mother, Bridget, testified in trial about the conversation Jay had with her after she broke the newsstand, and I had to read it twice. His response, according to Jay's mother's testimony under oath, said, quote, "If she had the baby, he wanted nothing to do with the baby. He didn't want it to have his name. He didn't want the child to ever know who he was," end quote. Okay. Didn't want the baby to have his name. Didn't want the child. Like, if you don't want no kids, wrap it up. Or better yet, just don't have sex. That's not my business. Not my monkey, not my show. But anyways, so the defense argues at trial that Taylor had a change of heart around the end of the year. So we go from November to December. That's like a month, okay? Say he reached back out to Jade on December 31st, and on January 1st, 2023, they met at a park and talked for hours. Okay. He had a whole change of heart. Friend was like, I want to be a part of your life. I want to be a part of this baby's life. Let's co parent together. Okay. If the child turns out to be mine. Now, okay, maybe he's coming around. People do that. Things change. People change. People have a change of heart all the time, right? And then I kept on reading. I kept on reading because now insert Apple Denny. Okay. And when I first saw her name in the file, I was like, who the hell is Apple and why is she here? Okay. Apple was the longtime former girlfriend of Blaze's friend, Blaze Taylor. And the reason she ended up in this story The reason she ended up on the witness stand is because when Jade's pregnancy came up, this man called her, his ex. And now, before I tell you what he asked her, I need to give you a little background on Apple Denny because she wasn't just a random ex, okay? She testified at trial that years before this particular incident, Taylor had gotten her pregnant too, friend. That's why I told you hold on to it, right? He asked her to also terminate her pregnancy. Apple agreed. So Apple Denny knew exactly how this man was moving when he was faced with something he ain't want to deal with, like an unwanted pregnancy, because she had lived it and experienced it firsthand. Okay. And this is the person that he called. And what he said to her on that call, she testified to every word of this under oath. He said, quote, he was Googling things. He was looking stuff up to figure out if there was something you could do to make her have an abortion, and asked me if I could get the abortion pills and could he make her take them or put them in her drink, end quote. What in all of Sam's carnations? I had to pause on that one. I know it was a long pause, but I like they still in this conversation. Even I have already read it and it still bothers my spirit. Okay. So she then testified that she talked him out of it. And friend, what I need you to hear clearly is that she talked him out of that specific plan, which means, according to her testimony, the conversation happened. He said those words out loud to his ex girlfriend on the phone about the mother of his unborn child. Because again, why are you calling your ex about your maybe next baby mama? I really need somebody to explain the logic to me. But I mean, whatever. Now, prosecutors introduced Appledane's testimony to trial to establish what they argued was a pattern in Taylor's behavior. This was not a spontaneous decision. There was documented a history of him trying to end a pregnancy that he didn't want, and the defense objected to the testimony. The jury heard it anyway. We're going to file Apple away and we're going to come back to her. Now, by early 2023, Taylor had left the Titans and moved to Utah. He was going to be a senior defensive analysis analyst. He was going to be a senior defensive analyst at Utah State, still building his coaching career, still moving, you know, doing his thing. And Jay was 5 months pregnant, getting her apartment in Lebanon Pike ready for Ivy, just going on about her life. This was February 25th, 2023, Frank. Now, the last person who saw Jade Bennett standing on her own 2 feet was her coworker at Ernest Bar and Hideaway, Lauren, remember? She testified that Jade came into work that day, said Jade told her she was leaving early, going home to cook dinner, to paint, and going to spend the evening with Blaze. And Lauren Weber testified that Jade appeared, quote, happy and excited about the plans, end quote. She was happy and excited about going home, and that is the last time her coworker saw her. So that evening, the date was on at Jade's apartment in Lebanon Pike. Okay. They were cooking together. They were going to be painting. Jade was working on the nursery, decorating it for Ivy. And at some point in the evening, Jade's best friend, Nigel Jackson, stopped by. And Nigel and Jade had been best friends since they were 6 years old. Okay. 6. They had been in each other's lives for almost 2 decades at this point. So when Nigel stopped by, it wasn't unusual. Now, she and Jay talked every day and saw each other regularly. Now, Naja, testified that while she was there, she and Jay were talking about plans for the nursery, the baby stuff, all right? And what it was going to look like what they were going to get and do and have ready for Ivy. Very normal, typical pregnancy conversations. Now, while they were having this conversation, Naja testified that Taylor's entire demeanor changed, and she described it as a very dark demeanor. And he told Naja he was going to paint that evening. His exact words, testified to under oath, entered into the court record. Quote, I'm going to paint a black hole. I'm going to call it midnight. The further you look, the deeper you go. End quote. Whew, chair. Now, both of those canvases were entered into trial evidence. Photographs of what is Jade's canvas that had a wavy green, yellow, and pink lines painted on it with the words love, hope, and peace. And then on the other side was his canvas, painted completely black. Okay. That's what the photograph showed. Now, Naja thought the comment was odd and left shortly thereafter, but she and Jade kept texting back and forth after she left. And in those texts, according to Naja's testimony, Jade seemed genuinely happy. She was excited about spending the rest of her evening with him. Whatever happened in that room while Naja was there, Jade was still looking forward to her night with this man. She was still in that apartment with him, still hopeful about however things were going to go between him. Now, as Naja was heading home, she stopped at a gas station to fill up her car and her phone rang. It was Jade, friend. And what Naja testified she heard on that phone call is why every single one of us are sitting here right now, because Jade had become violently ill. Vomiting, she couldn't walk, she couldn't feel her legs. And while Naja was standing at that gas station with her phone to her ear, she heard Jade say, quote, what did you do? What did you put in my drink? End quote. And then Jade said, quote, Blaze, you're scaring me. To which he responded, you're scaring me. And Jade said, I know you put something in my drink. I knew my drink tasted funny. I can't even walk straight. Now, Naja testified at some point during the call. Jade asked Taylor to empty his pockets. Think about that for a second, friend. She's sick, can't stand up, can barely speak, and her first instinct is to tell this man to empty his pockets because she already knew something had happened to her. So Naja was like, she kept calling Jay's name, asking her to respond, asking her to talk to her. And I want to take a pause because Jay had the common sense to call somebody so that, like, somebody knew what the fuck was going on, okay? The call she had with Naja was roughly 6 minutes long, and Naja testified that throughout the entire 6 minutes, Taylor barely spoke. The woman he supposedly cared enough about to co-parent with, the mother of his child, was on the phone telling him she couldn't walk and couldn't feel her legs, and he barely said a word. And the last thing Naja said she heard Jade say before her words went slurred and then went silent was this. Quote, you did this so something would happen to the baby, end quote, and then nothing. Naja was again at the gas station, friend, filling up her car, and that was the last conversation she had with her friend. Now, 9:38 p.m., the 911 call, Taylor calls 911 at 9:38, friend. That call was played for the jury, and I want you to hear his exact words to the dispatcher because I need you to remember that he had just watched this woman go from telling her friend she couldn't walk to completely silent on the phone. He said, quote, I don't know. I think she's having an allergic reaction. We were making cookies and painting, and she said she wasn't feeling good. Now I'm going back to the room to check on her, end quote. Making cookies and painting. That's the detail he led with. Not that she had been violently ill. Not that she said she couldn't feel her legs, friend. They was in there making cookies and painting, okay? Now, when the dispatcher asked him about the symptoms of this severe allergic reaction, okay, friend, you get the swelling, the hives, the redness, all of that stuff. He said she didn't have anything. So how did he knew she was having an allergic reaction if she ain't had no symptoms of having an allergic reaction? But he said she wasn't responding and appeared to be vomiting. The two don't make sense, but okay, we gonna let it ride because that's what he's telling people. Now, friend, the EMS arrived. A first respondent testified that Taylor appeared frantic and anxious at the scene. Of course he did, because he just damn killed this girl. But, well, I can't say that. We don't know that yet. I digress, all right? He also said that Tyler physically interfered with their work. Specifically, he would not allow the EMTs to properly assess Jade while she was still inside the apartment. He was blocking their access to her. Now, the scene was considered unsafe to perform CPR right there, so EMS made the call to load her up and go. And they got her into the ambulance and started full resuscitation efforts on the way to the hospital, friend. They had found Jade face down across her bed with no pulse, unconscious, okay? And they just rushed her to Vanderbilt University Medical Center. The physician who was there when she arrived, Dr. Michael, I'm not even about to listen, his name, O Olushgo, Olga, OLUSH8OGA. Figure it out, friend. I ain't got the time. He testified in that what he said was all signs pointed to the fact that she was dead. She arrived with severe brain damage, and baby Ivy, who was still inside of her, had a low heart rate when Jade was admitted. Jade went into full cardiac arrest, suffered what the record describes as a non-survivable brain injury, and she was placed on life support, friend. Baby Ivy died on February 27th, 2023, 2 days after that date night. Jade's family made the decision to remove her from life support on March 6th, 2023, her 25th birthday. She never made it out of her 24th year. Her birthday, friend. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking, Frank, because I thought it too, right? She's gone. He was standing there right there in that apartment. He was the last person with her. The friend had heard the call. Why did it take them a full year to arrest them, friend? I hear you, okay? Because no, they did not arrest her then. Arrest him then. Um, I really thought the same thing. But here is why, friend. So this case was not built on one piece of evidence, okay? Because that was going to make it too simple. This was actually built piece by piece, layer by layer, over the course of more than a year. And that's the kind of work that either holds up in court or doesn't, okay? Now, Nashville PD homicide detective Adam Reese led this investigation unit. He was at Jade's apartment the very next morning, February 26, 2023, after the night of the dinner. The crime scene investigators photographed everything. And from the kitchen, they collected a nearly empty bottle of V8 Splash. It was half full of pink lemonade and 2 water glasses, a comforter with vomit on it, and a washcloth. And those items go to the lab, and then we gotta wait, Frey. So here's something that happened between the first visit and the lab visits. Something the defense made the centerpiece of their entire case file, friend. While Jay was still at Vanderbilt, her family was at the hospital not knowing if she was going to survive or not. Jade's mother called Lauren Weber, her coworker, and asked her to go to the apartment, blow out the candle that had been left burning, lock the door, take Jade's keys for safekeeping. Lauren testified that when she walked into the apartment, she smelled cleaning products. Now, another one of Jade's friends, Stephanie Franklin, also went to the apartment the following day at Jade's mother's request. And when investigators returned with a search warrant, they testified that some items inside the apartment had been moved or removed. A detective described the scene as contaminated. Now, I know what you're thinking, friend. Did that just mess up the whole case? Because that is a real legitimate question. If the scene is contaminated, if things have been moved, if people are going in and out before the police get back with the warrant, that is the defense attorney's dream. And the defense used every single bit of that in trial. But I need you to hold on to that question for now because the answer is more complicated than a yes or no. Now, one more thing from that investigation that I need you to have before we get to the trial. Detective Reese testified that a drinking cup, a specific cup that was visible in photographs, was taken inside, photographs that were taken inside Jade's apartment on February 26th, was now missing by the time police executed the search warrant and came back. It was there in the photographs, and then it just was gone when they returned. Now, the prosecutors argued at trial that the detail was significant, okay? And the act of removing the cup showed that this was not spontaneous, that somebody knew what that cup contained. Now, friend, we're going to get into the science of it, okay? Because In trying to find this, what was going on with Jade, they obviously did the autopsy, they did these tests, they had the lab results and da da da. Da. So Dr. Erin Kearney, Davidson County Medical Examiner, that's who performed Jade's autopsy. And she testified to the fact that, and I quote, and I'm going to quote directly, the concentration of cocaine found in Jade's blood was the highest she could recall seeing in more than 3,000 autopsies that she had performed in her entire career. How the hell did we get to cocaine? Okay. Now, in over 3,000 autopsies, this was the highest she had seen. I'm going to give you the other half of that, okay? Medical testimony at trial established that there was no documented history of cocaine use because I already know you was thinking, we already established that Jade wasn't even drinking. So cocaine in her system, how do we get there? Now, she wasn't doing cocaine, friend. She wasn't. She was at every doctor's appointment. You do your lab works. They was going to find it if she was. So she wasn't. Now, the question the defense was going to ask, and it did ask, is could she have taken it herself? Could this have been recreational use that went wrong? And here is what the science said, because it gets even more specific. A toxicology expert testified about a substance called cocaethylene. Now, I want to explain what that is because it does matter. Cocaethylene forms in the body when cocaine and alcohol are metabolized together at the same time. So it's not cocaine, it's not alcohol. It is now a third substance that the body produces when both are present simultaneously. The toxicology expert testified that the cocaethylene found in Jade's system, it was a lot. Now, it matters because in the context of this specific case, Jade had even stopped drinking. So the fact that she had this much coke in her system at all, her doctor confirmed it at trial, but she had put everything down. She wasn't doing nothing. Again, so if the cocaethylene forms when cocaine and alcohol are metabolized together and Jade had stopped drinking, then the question of how both substances ended up in her system at the same time becomes a very specific question. So the one medical examiner addressed it directly on the stand. Okay. She testified, I don't know how it was adjusted. I just know it was adjusted. The receipts are starting to stack up, friend. And this is, again, why it took a year to build. Now, Jay died March 6, 2023. Blaze Taylor was not indicted until March of 2024, a full year later. Okay. I want to tell you where Deputy U.S. Marshals found him when they finally came to make their arrest, because this is the part that made me sit down and be like, this motherfucker. Okay. He was in Logan, Utah, and he had just, as in very recently, been named an analyst at Texas A&M. Was in the process of joining the coaching staff that included his own father, Trooper Taylor, some name, as an assistant coach. Father and son duo, same staff, okay? He was starting something new. Can we say nepotism? Mm, I know, friend. I'm a dial dick. They were building something at Texas A&M, but that's where the U.S. Marshals found him, okay? They found him in Utah. The school put him on suspension less than a week after they hired him until the ending of this case. They was like, we don't want no parts of you, so we need to distance ourselves from you. And once this is all over, we can talk again. Now, his bond was eventually set at $2.5 million. He posted it. He had a GPS monitor. It costs to be a criminal. Do you know you gotta pay to have an ankle monitor? That's crazy. Anyways, I digress. Okay, so while he was waiting for trial, the detective Adam Reese was named Employee of the Year in 2024 for this investigation specifically, okay? The official citation reads that he conducted a relentless investigation that spanned more than a year and ultimately led to the indictment, okay? So trial begins June 22nd, 2026. Now, in Davidson County courtroom, it was a very lengthy trial. It was about 8 days. And I'm going to take you through what the jury heard because the indictment tells me what prosecutors believe, but the trial let me hear everybody's case and everybody's got a version. Now, day 5 of this trial, The prosecution called Apple Denny to the stand. Remember Apple, friend? I told you we was going to come back to her. Now she's here. She testified again about that phone call, about what he asked her, and about what he was Googling about the conversation where he talked about putting something in somebody's drink. The defense objected to her testimony being included, but the jury was able to hear it anyway. So prosecutors argued that it demonstrated a pattern of what happened to Jade not being impulsive, but that there was documented evidence that Blaze Taylor was researching this exact thing beforehand. Okay. Now, the Nashville ADA, Jan Norman, stood up in closing arguments and told that jury, quote, he goes over there to the date night with cocaine to put it in her drink. And Jay Benning did not want to harm herself or her baby, end quote. Now, the defense, and I'm giving you this full and fair because they stood in front of the jury and did their job, okay, wholeheartedly. That's what they supposed to do. It's the defense attorney. Defense attorney Letitia Quinones Hollins, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong there. She told the jury, quote, there was only one person involved with drugs and it wasn't Blaze, end quote. The defense argued that the toxicology evidence was unreliable. The crime scene was contaminated. Jade had a history of drug use that the prosecution was hiding, and her death was an accidental overdose and absolutely nothing more. Everything on the table, both sides, okay? Now, friend, July 1st, 2026, the jury came back. And because I know those counts can start running together, let me break down every single one of them, how they land, okay? Guilty, second-degree murder, Jay Bennett. Guilty, first-degree murder, premeditated murder of Ivy. Guilty. 2 counts of felony murder. 4 counts. 4 guilty verdicts. And the jury reached all 4 of them in less than 2 hours and 20 minutes frame. Now, people was in that courtroom crying from both sides, okay? People who love Jade, people who love Blaze, and the sound of a verdict landing after more than 3 years. Jade's father, Dennis Browning, stepped outside and told reporters, quote, definitely glad everything is over and justice is served, end quote. Jade's aunt Brandy delivered an impact statement, and she talked about what the loss had done to Jade's mother, Bridget, who testified at this trial about the last conversation she had with her daughter. The aunt said, quote, when she talked about Jade Bennett being her life, she was her life. They talked every day, end quote. Now, the defense has filed an appeal, and Taylor maintains his innocence, scheduling its sentence for September 9th, 2026, before Judge Steve Dozier in Davidson County Criminal Court, case number 2024-A-490, okay? That is where we stand today. So what we learned today is don't take no drinks from nobody and leave these people alone, okay? Leave these people alone. But before we go, I do want to take you back to Ernest Bar and Hideaway where Jade worked. Lauren saw her walking out that door happy and excited about going home. After Jade died, the restaurant put up 2 memorials inside. A small photograph of her right outside the kitchen where she used to work, so that anybody coming in and out of that kitchen that passes her every single shift and every single night before the service starts before the service starts, they light a candle. And at the end of the night, once everything is done, whoever closes that restaurant blows it out together, okay? They all blow it out together. I think that's the sweetest thing. Now, I told you at the top that we didn't know Jay, that we keep talking about him, and we didn't even know her, and I didn't like that. So now we know her. Jade Tristan Bennett and her daughter, Ivy, okay? I still ain't got no answers for why. I read every exhibit, every piece of testimony, everything I could find and get my hands on, and I still don't understand how somebody who had everything going for him, the career, the degree, the opportunity, like how you make a choice that you made. Like how you give somebody some cocaine just to get rid of a baby. At this point, just this a fucking beer. Like goodness grief. She already told you she was okay with raising this baby by herself. Like, go on somewhere. But anyways, my job was never to really answer the question, friend. My job was to read the file and bring you with me. And that's what I did today. All right. You can go on about your day. I'm finna go find something to decompress from this week, if I'm being quite honest, because I told you how I started the week. But that's my side eye friend. I found it, I read it, and now I'm telling you, you got to make sense. You have to buffering. At least that's one thing I still do. You make it make sense, however that makes sense for you, friend. And listen, before I go, don't let nobody play in your face. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember to side eye responsibly, friend. And please protect your peace and your energy. It is priceless. And listen, if you got any receipts or something that had you like, what the fuck? Slide over to Instagram and TikTok at the Side Eye Files, on YouTube at the Side Eye Files Podcast, or email me at the Side Eye Files at gmail.com. Because you already know I'm nosy. I'm going to do the deep dive. And I really want to hear what you be looking at in side eye. So you never know. It might end up in these files. All right, friend. Stay nosy. I'm going to head out. See you next Wednesday.